What's up guys, it's Dwayne from Mountain Buck, and this is my Stealth Cam Revolver 360 review. What's up guys, it's Dwayne from Mountain Buck. Today I'm checking out the brand new Stealth Cam Revolver 360 cellular trail camera. I am super pumped to check this camera out because I think it can be the ultimate food plot or field trail camera. If you watch my channel, you know I'm really big into food plots, and this camera here will take images in a full 360 degrees around it. You could drop this thing in your food plot or your field and you're gonna catch all the action. This camera shoots 36 megapixel photos and 1080p videos. Let's check it out. So here it is right out of the package, guys, and check that out. That's a really nice, realistic tree bark camo and texture on there, helping it to blend into the environment. You have this motion detection strip down here going all the way around, so you're gonna detect motion from 360 degrees around this camera. Up here you have the lens, and you can see that's on a motor, and that's going to rotate wherever there's motion detected and then take a photo over there. Up here you have the antenna, and this is a dual network capable antenna here. So this is going to capture whatever cell phone signal is best in your area from the major networks, the major carriers. We'll just get that on there real quick. Around back, we have some components here. We may have some mounting hardware in here. I'll have to check that out. But you do have a strap for the tree, and you have a little Python hole here. If you want to lock this thing up with a Python cable, goes through the back and it goes through the latch here. You also have thread mounts on the bottom if you'd like to mount it that way. And you also have an input here, 12 volt input, if you want to plug in a solar panel or an external battery. Let's open this thing up. All right, so very minimalistic design here. You have a standard size SD card slot right on here. You have some basic functionality with some LED indicators showing you what's going on with the camera. You have the QR code here on the door where you're going to scan this with your Command Pro app and activate it. Let's check this out. This is kind of a different design for the batteries. So right here, looks like we have two separate 8 battery cartridges here. So this camera will take 16 batteries and they kind of slide in there in a really neat way. So we'll check that out in a minute. Let's see what else comes with the package here. Okay, we of course have the strap for the tree. We have a metal mounting bracket. We have a quick start guide with a Stealth Cam sticker inside there. Looks like we have some little bolts. Another piece here to that bracket, we'll have to check that out. And this external port that you could plug in there to the 12 volt port. All right, our batteries are installed, and I just want to point out one of the mounting options they give you here. They give you this really nice metal T-post mount here. If you have a T-post out in your field, you want to mount it with this, use this guy here. This little plastic piece will go on the back, and then you use these little screws here to affix it that way. I'm just going to use this standard thread mount on a post outside, which we'll get to later, so I'm not going to set that up for now. What we're going to do here is add our standard size SD card into the SD card slot, and then activate this and connect it up with our app. Click that plus sign and scan the QR code. The camera is now activating. Next, we should insert batteries, the SD card, and power on the camera. Okay, hit next, then format your SD card. Power on your camera. Click next after your camera is registered. It will ask you to set the direction where you have the camera positioned, and they make it easy to select the plan right from the Command Pro app. Add your payment info and your plan will be updated. Click that little down arrow to access settings. Select your upload frequency. The more times you choose, the more battery it will use. I'm going with twice a day to conserve batteries for now. And here's where it gets interesting. Choose your capture mode. PIR 360 will take 6 different images at once, which captures 360 degrees around the camera once it detects motion in any zone. PIR 180 will take 3 photos capturing 180 degrees once it detects motion. PIR photo will capture a photo from whichever zone detects motion as long as you have that zone active. PIR video will capture a 10-second video from whichever zone you have active and it detects motion from. Select your photo resolution. You can choose photo burst with 3 photos. Here are your burst interval options from 1 to 5 seconds. Here's where you select your active zones. Just tap on the zones you want to enable them. Zone 2 is directly in front of the camera. If you mount this to a tree, you may want to eliminate Zone 5 and possibly Zones 4 and 6 depending on how big the tree is. If you have this out in a food plot or a field, I would activate all the zones. You can set the PIR delay from just a couple seconds all the way up to an hour. I'm setting that PIR sensitivity to high, and you can reduce the blur for night shots here. Here's where you can set it to get on-demand photos, and keep in mind, this setting will impact the battery life, so I'll leave it off for now. DVR mode will write over old photos on your SD card with new ones, so you don't miss anything. This here is a great feature. You can share access to the camera here, so if you have a buddy or family member you want to check your photos, here's where you invite them. All right, our Revolver 360 is all set and ready to go. Let's get this thing outside and run some tests. Okay, our Revolver 360 is all set on the tree, and I want to point out that yes, you can still mount it on the tree like that and take full advantage of the camera. What you could do is set it up so it captures everything in front of the camera 180 degrees, so it captures Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3, and ignores everything behind it, so ignoring the tree behind it. So you can make use of it by mounting it to a tree that way. First test I'm going to do here today is the image clarity, image quality test, where I hold up an eye chart, just like the one you'd have at your optometrist office to check your vision. I'm going to set up about 15 feet in front of the camera and see how sharp these images are. Next up is our trigger speed test. Now this camera is a lot different than a traditional trail camera. It's got a lot of great innovation, a lot of great technology in there, and I don't think my regular trigger speed test is going to work. What I normally do for my trigger speed test is I run right by it about 10 yards and see how quickly that camera captures me. This camera is way different, and I'm gonna explain why. So right now, it's set up to shoot only in Zone 2, straight ahead. It's gonna ignore all the motion and everything going out around it and only shoot straight ahead in Zone 2. The camera starts in Zone 1. So the camera's on a motor. When it detects motion in Zone 2, it turns there and takes a picture and then goes back to Zone 1. So I don't think my regular trigger speed test is going to work for it. But if you think about it, if this camera is set up and you're using it to its fullest, capturing all the zones, you're going to follow that animal wherever it goes and get pictures of it anyway. So the trigger speed really doesn't matter. It's not going to be able to run 360 degrees around the camera fast enough. So I'm still going to do the test and we'll see how we make out. Next up is the detection range test. Now the Revolver 360 has an 80-foot detection range. How I do this test is I have 4 cones set up back there at varying distances. The first one at 10 yards, then 20, 25, and then 30 yards out. Now remember, I'm shooting only in Zone 2 here straight ahead. So let's see how far out the Revolver 360 is going to capture me. All right, let's talk about mounting options here for a minute. You can, of course, mount this camera to a tree like we have it here. They give you a T-post mount, so you can mount it on a post that way if you'd like to do that. But in my opinion, the ultimate utilization of this camera is right smack dab in the middle of a food plot or a field, and that's why I picked up the Stealth Cam Modular trail camera mount here. This thing is really awesome. I just put it together. You can adjust the height on this mount. Right up top here, we have our thread mount where we're going to mount our camera. And check this out. On the side, they give you this really nice accessory arm here where you can, of course, mount another trail camera. But if you have a Revolver 360, you don't need another trail camera because you're already capturing everything in the area. But what I'm going to do is install a solar panel on here. And this is really nice because you can adjust it, change the position to make sure you're getting the sun and powering up that solar panel. But we all know cellular trail cameras take a lot of battery. They shoot the photos, they shoot the videos, then they transmit them to your smartphone. This camera adds another element. It has that motorized camera on there, and that's also going to take up some battery. Now, I don't know what the battery life is like on this yet. I'm just testing it now, but I definitely think adding a solar panel on this guy is going to help. I'm going to put the link to this item in the description below, but I think it is the perfect partner for that trail camera. Now, let's get this thing set up in the middle of that field and see what it's all about. Okay, we are set up out here in the middle of the field. We have our Revolver 360 set up on this really nice Stealth Cam modular mount. And what I'm gonna do here is test the 360 capabilities of this camera. Now, it's hard to see my cones here because the weeds and grass is really high out here, but I have my 4 cones set up at a perimeter here, 360-degree perimeter, 20 yards away from the camera in 4 different directions. And what I'm gonna do here is start in zone 1. So the camera is right now facing me in zone 1. I'm gonna start over here. I'm gonna walk around in a circle at 20 yards all the way around, and we're gonna test this camera's 360 capabilities. Let's see how the photos come out. Okay, now I want to test this camera's 360-degree video capability, and I'm just going to do the same thing I did for the photo test. I'm going to start out walking a big circle at 20 yards here, start out in zone 1, then zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, and zone 6. Now the Revolver 360 shoots 1080p video, and I'm excited to see how these videos come out. All right, we are on our last lap out here. Of course, I picked the hottest day of the year to do this. But this is our last lap. We're gonna get back and check out that footage and see how the Revolver 360 makes out. Before we jump into the results, I wanna show you more about how this camera functions. Here's an example of the PIR 360 degree mode. It detected me in zone 1 here, as you can see that info bar, and then subsequently took photos in all 5 other zones. The really cool thing here is that Stealth Cam only counts this sequence of 6 photos as 1 image, so that really saves your plan. Here's the PIR 180 degree mode, where I have this mounted to a small tree and I've activated zones 1, 2, and 3 in front of the camera. You can see it captured the deer in zone 2, and it also captured zone 1, part of my backyard there, and zone 3. Here is PIR photo mode. I have all 6 zones active, so it will only take photos in the zones where there is motion. You can see this doe comes in this area. She's in zone 2. She lays down for a bit in the ferns. She then gets up and moves to zone 1 real close to the camera and works her way around to zone 6 and then zone 5 in the sun there before she leaves. The Revolver only took the shots in the zones where the doe was. Another thing I really like about this camera is you can't sneak up on it. It's going to capture you no matter where you're coming from, as long as you have all those zones active. This makes it really difficult to steal without having your photo taken. Here is how the PIR video works, and you can see in these video previews that Mama Turkey and her poults here start in zone 3 and the camera takes a 10-second video. She then moves to zone 2 where we get another video, and finally zone 1 before we get our last 10-second video. I also want to point out that I was curious about the deer getting spooked by the camera moving around, so I set up another camera here to check it out. Of course, the deer was curious about this new thing mounted in the little area, but it did not impact her. She laid down and rested and also worked her way directly around the camera to graze. I also saw this in another spot where I had the camera mounted. The deer did not mind it at all. Here's the image clarity test on this 36 megapixel camera, and this was done with the full HD image that I pulled from the SD card. And we could see pretty clearly down to line 7 there. Line 8 gets a little blurry when I zoom in there. Here's the trigger speed test, and as I suspected, this camera and its 0.4 second trigger did not catch me because the lens had to rotate. And as you can see, it did rotate and take a photo, but it didn't catch me in the shot. And again, I don't think this really matters. For detection range, the Revolver caught me at every single marker all the way out to 25 yards there. In my 360 photo test, you can see the camera caught me in each zone all the way around the camera at 20 yards. Zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, 4, 5, and 6. Same thing here in the 360 video test. It recorded 10-second videos of me walking around the camera at 20 yards in each zone. Here's an example of the daytime image quality you get right from the app. This close-up shot here is really good quality right from the app, and here's the HD version of the same image. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the regular image and the HD version that I've blown up and put next to each other so you can see the difference. A little more detail on the HD side there. Here's another example a little further away with this little buck. Here's the standard image, and here's the HD version and the side-by-side comparison. The images aren't quite as crisp and clear when they're a bit further away. Here's the nighttime image quality. The area is lit up pretty well and you can see that doe. And here's the HD version. And here's a side-by-side comparison of both the standard and HD versions that I've blown up. And the area is lit well and you can see that doe pretty clearly in both shots. Here's the daytime video quality. Good quality video there, 10-second video. And here's the nighttime video quality. Again, you can see that deer pretty clearly at nighttime. Let's test the audio. Here's the infrared lights that your camera will put off for those nighttime photos and videos. Over the course of my test period, the Revolver took 235 images. However, that number is deceiving because they count the 360 and the 180 photos as one transmission and one photo. This camera actually took 298 photos and 216 10-second videos. I am honestly really surprised that the camera is showing full battery in the app. Keep in mind, this is a cellular trail camera and it has that lens on a motor that's moving around constantly. It would be nice to have the numerical battery life indicator, as we don't know if these 4 bars represent 76%, 86%, or even 96%. And keep in mind, I had this on the twice a day photo transmission, which is a pretty conservative setting. So there it is, the Stealth Cam Revolver 360. This camera and its Pro version are the ultimate food plot and field trail camera. No more deer sneaking behind the camera or off to the side. This thing's gonna capture everything. A lot of really great technology in here. Plus, I'm really surprised at the great battery life. I'm a really big fan of this camera. As always, the links to that we talk about are in the description below. Guys, get yourself some killer mountain buck gear. Do me a favor, hook me up and hit subscribe. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, and we'll see you on the next one.